am Stacy Brown Summers, and I am casting from the beautiful and rainy Pacific Northwest. And I thank you for watching, whether you're on live today or you're watching this later. I appreciate you spending your time with us. Today we want to talk to you or with you about translation quality, which is a big passion of mine. But before we get started, just a couple of housekeeping things. One, if you're on the live chat right now and you have any questions or comments or want to participate, feel free to go to the live chat on the side and type away. We'll try to respond. At the end, we'll have a little Q&A time. If you're not watching this live but still have some thoughts as we go along, feel free to put them in the comments and we'll be glad to address those later. In addition, for those of you that stay till the very end of the webinar, I have a very special offer for you. So I hope that you hang with us the whole time. We're going to be respectful of your time today, but I definitely want to send you a little gift for staying with us. So now let's get into our topic, which is about tracking data for translation quality, which is kind of an interesting topic if you know me at all, because I'm really not a numbers girl. Always, veered away from math classes or any numbers related things in my life. Definitely identify more as a right brain type of person, but as you know, with the right brain and the left brain, they're very different parts of our minds, and the right brain being the more creative, emotional part, and the left brain is your data-driven part. And I think it's important to know this when you're working in the quality field at all, or just concerned about quality at all, because there is an emotional component about that perception that there might be a quality issue. And so it's easy to get upset or, fired up or something like that. Whereas, looking at that data can help alleviate the stress that might come up for a perceived quality issue, and can drive you to solutions. So I have found, even though it's not my natural tendency to live in the data side of my brain, that being able to track and collect data is the most powerful tool that I have in order to delight my clients and provide the best service I can. I'll give you an example of what I mean. A few years ago, I was managing a quality team, and we had a client who sat me down one day and said, I have a lot of concerns about the data I'm getting from your team. It seems like they're making a lot of mistakes. They're not following all the instructions. There's a big issue here. And of course, it was like a dagger in my heart, because this is my passion. Quality is like my thing. And so I had to definitely, after I experienced that right brain upset emotional part of this feedback, and I processed that, I definitely felt like I got to dig into this and find out what her concerns are, because I definitely want to make sure that the quality that they're getting, which in this case was about quality, was reliable information. So we went about to change a little bit our structure, and we started measuring quality about the process, about how we track and manage quality. And it was really interesting, because we found that as we collected data on accuracy, for example, we were able to report that to this client. We reported out that we had actually, a 98, 99% accuracy. So what she had perceived as a lot of quality issues were really more in that 2%, and maybe they had a big impact. We didn't want to, not address her issues or concerns, but statements like, I can't trust anything out of your team. Having that data to present to her definitely helped alleviate that concern, because she could see, actually, most of the time the data I get from you guys is right and valuable. And when they And then we also introduced a process for how we track issues when they do come up, so that we can learn from them and that they don't come up again. And so really pulling that feedback out of my right brain and processing it with my left brain, using that data, really turned around the relationship with this client. And she actually was very supportive in helping us achieve our goals for quality and accuracy going forward. So that's an example of what I'm talking about, how powerful data can be, because it does affect, one, the perception, and two, it helps you get to the root of the issue. Now, specifically about translation quality. Again, I've been in the translation field now about 15 years, and quality is, again, as technology improves, translation is more and more available to everyone. There's tools like Google Translate or Bing Translate that make language accessibility really available to anyone. But what isn't always available is translation quality. And so that's what we need to address with a system to make sure that that the quality you're getting is effective. And so why is it so important with translation? Well, one, especially if you're translating where you don't speak the target language. So like, for example, you might have a website, an e-commerce site that you want to promote. You're getting a lot of usage in China and you want to promote it. And so you decide to translate it into Chinese. And, but understand that you'd make that decision and maybe you even move forward and have it translated, but without any sort of quality measures. You just kind of have to depend on, the stories that you get from your clients on if they're happy with the translation. And, as evidence from my experience with my client, sometimes that story isn't always the best picture, especially if you're only getting it from one or two important clients that you work with, primarily because it's language itself is a right brain function, right? It's subjective. It's prone to preferential issues. And so quality needs some definition around it, like what is good translation and what is not good translation. And so by coming up with some measurements and some ways to track that, you can actually get that definition, and it's going to help your end result or your end goal. How important is it to have good quality translations? Well, I would say very, very important, especially if you do intend to do business with people who are not, or maybe either limited or not English speakers. We kind of take for granted that English is, one of the most common languages in the world, but at the same time, you can't count on your English website to get the results in China that a Chinese website would get. And so the reality is there's actually a stat out there where 75% of users are more likely to click and convert, when they're reviewing your information in their native language. And again, when I say their native language, I don't mean a Google translated version of their native language. Google Translate's great for giving you the gist, but when it comes to a business interaction, and your marketing strategy, you want to give more than the gist of what you do. And so being able to provide that is going to be really important. And another thing to consider when you're looking at translation is the effects of poor translation. Having a poorly translated website can have some humorous results. And somebody from our team was in China recently and took a bunch of pictures of funny translations. This one was one of her favorites. I don't know if that this is the worst example of translation, because I feel like I'm getting the message of what they want to say, especially with the graphic there, but it's still funny. And, in most cases, you don't want your website to be a laughing matter for your end users and your potential clients, right? So hopefully I've made the case for why translation quality is really important, and let's just jump into some practical ways that we can track and find that quality. So before we get into what to track, I want to talk briefly about where to find the data that you need. And it can be in a lot of different places depending on your process. There's project tracking tools that'll give you a lot of powerful information if you use those. We use an in-house one called Linguists. You can check it out on our website. It's available to everybody. But that gives us a ton of data that is really super useful about how long it takes our linguists to accomplish something, how responsive they are, how, for making our deadlines, things like that. And it helps us really collaborate and collect that information. Another tool, if you're not using a computer-aided translation tool, which you may or may not know a lot about, what we call CAT tools. I actually have a training on that. I'll put it in the notes if you want to get more information on using CAT tools. There's a lot of them out there. There's Trados. We use one called WordBee. It's an online tool. And WordBee has some powerful quality tracking metrics and things that they can give us. So that's a big reason why we like to use WordBee. And then thirdly, we use a quality tracking system. And in my case, hold on, I gotta clean my desktop before I show it to you. We put one together in, here, let me show you my whole screen so my head's not in the way. We put one together in SharePoint. And SharePoint comes with your Office 365 subscription. And I just put together a quick form here so our editors, as they're tracking quality, they can come here and complete a form if they find issues. And notice here they can select different categories of the types of issues that they track. This is going to come in handy later and I'll show you later, but I just wanted to point this out because we're going to talk about this again. But you can track quality issues. You can do a simple SharePoint form. You can do a simple Excel form. You can do a bug tracking system like Jira. There's a lot of ways that you can do this, but having a way to track quality, and it might add a little bit to the time that you spend, but again, the payoff is enormous when you have that data for your clients that will again, affect that perception and satisfaction. So it's definitely worth the time to put in a little extra step for tracking quality issues. And then again, we're going to report on those issues. So what kinds of issues should you be tracking? And this isn't really something I can tell you. And I'm sorry if that disappoints some of you. But I don't really have a formula for if you track these issues, you're going to have good translation quality. It really varies, and it varies depending on the goals that you have. So the first step in any quality process, I recommend setting some goals, some SMART goals, specific, measurable, agreed upon, realistic, and time-based goals that are really specific in terms of how, even if it's like, okay, for this month, I want to see a 20% decrease in the number of, mistranslations. And so then you can track that and show if you were successful at making that goal. And so by having this data, setting a goal, and this is something you can do, with your team, with your translators, with your clients. But set some goals so that you know exactly what to focus your quality system on. And so once you do that, you can, and I've come up with a list of ideas of what you can track. And I like these paw prints because when you think about tracking and following, in the woods or whatever, I mean, the real goal is to, again, get to the root, get to the the goal of the thing, right? So it's important not to just track metrics because you can, but they should be meaningful to you and your organization. Here are a few ideas of some things you might track. There's probably a lot more out there, and you might share some of your ideas with us. But so as far as some things to track, one, for our organization, it's important that we understand the efficiency of the translation that happens. Most of our translations, we have a translator and an editor working on them. But, time is usually of the essence. And so having a way to match and track efficiency lets us know if we have the right team members assigned, if we have the right tools available, if we have, the right circumstance for again, our translators to make our SMART goals, our SMART efficiency goals. So a couple of like sub goals or, things that you could track to help understand if you have efficiency in your process is one, what is the percentage of words from your translation memory? Translation memory, it is something that is tracked in your CAT tool. And again, like I said, we'll post a training for that in the comments below. But it basically, in a brief definition, is that your translation memory is a database. So if you've ever translated a word one time, that the next time you translate a similar document, it'll remember that word. So you don't have to keep and pay for the same word to be translated over and over. For example, how many times, and I see this with some of our clients, where they're paying us to translate words like enter, submit. Like, who cares? These words already exist out there. So having a memory of that and using it effectively, and that's the key, can it really improve your efficiency on any project and your quality. So coming up with agreed upon, whether it's your memory or glossaries or anything like that you can work on up front, and you plug that into your computer-aided translation tools, that's one less thing for, a human to make an error on, if you think about it that way. So, really, I read an article recently about like augmented humans. Like human translation is so important, but having tools and using computing power in order to affect quality is really critical. So tracking your, when we track, okay, how many words were used from translation memory, the higher that number in many cases, the better, because it means, we had these terms already agreed upon and effective, and we were able to track that. I also like to look at the percentage of edits an editor might make. And again, this can be tracked usually in a computer-aided translation tool. It definitely is in our tool WordBee. However, if you don't opt to use that, you can still track, like if you have your translation done in Word and you have your editor edit it and use track changes, there's ways to count those changes and understand how many changes per language. And that's kind of an interesting metric to look at, because it helps you understand, again, the effort spent on the translation. And in the end, the more edits doesn't necessarily mean a bad thing, but it might signal a problem with your translators, understanding of the content, or it might signal a problem of your editor documenting preferential issues. So again, it's kind of I think sometimes you have to, you can't just look at these numbers straight up and only manage by them, right? You still have to integrate that right brain into the data as well, and use that critical thought to say, okay, here's this data, but what's the meaning behind it? And how should I react to it? And that's going to be different in a case-by-case scenario. So I just wanted to point that out, because I just, I've given this presentation similarly before, and somebody always makes that comment, well, there's so many issues, you can't really track this. No, it's true. You can't know the whole story from numbers, from these data points, but they definitely give you some insight that or it's like a target, and they kind of show you where, you might want to dig a little deeper, again, to get the truth of the matter. So you could also, for efficiency, look at volume per day, time per segment, how much time, how many words is a person doing per day, how much time are they spending. Again, it doesn't always mean it's a problem, but it can be a signal of a problem if you see some excessive time. Accuracy metrics, this is getting at these categories I was talking about before. Again, this is an extra step, but it can be worthwhile to understand the issues. For example, and you can weight these issues as well, like a mistranslation. If an editor has to totally retranslate a paragraph because obviously the translator wasn't familiar with the context or content, or maybe the translator didn't see the context and so was guessing, which can happen a lot. I've seen kind of random words out of context not make sense to a translator. And so mistranslation could potentially be a more weighted issue than like a spelling error. But again, if there's a lot of spelling errors, it could signal a problem with your translator. So again, this is all part of like spelling it out, like getting that understanding of your quality. And so having your editor take some time and, logging these issues is going to be an important step to get this data and this picture. If that's, again, aligned with your SMART goals. See how this all ties together? So another thing it's important to know, everybody, we're running businesses. If you have a website, you might, maybe you have a web-based business and it's a smaller business, translation can be an investment, a big investment. And so being able to understand what that return on investment and where, your money is going is going to be an important thing that you can track and understand. And also understand the effectiveness of the translation. For example, I like to look at things like your bounce rate per language. You can get this off of Google Analytics. And, if you have a lower bounce rate, and I've seen this like on my site, I get a lot of people from Russia looking at my site. I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt that they're looking, interested in what I have to offer. But I definitely see that the bounce rate for Russian is higher because I don't currently have a native translation for Russian. So that's probably an opportunity for us and that would be an interesting thing to track. Like if we decide, hey, we really want to go after this market. I'm seeing a lot of interest, whether it's Russia or Brazil or, Japan. And so when you see these kind of patterns emerge, you might just translate a landing page, which is going to be much cheaper than translating your whole site. And then you can start seeing the data from that. And then you can start, again, getting to that higher conversion rate, which is, again, the goal for any web-based business. So the return on investment, these are things, it's like the title of our webinar. They're knowable. They're things we can take out of that emotional perception. And I kind of think about sometimes as a business owner, you get those feelings of like, oh, nobody cares. You have those down days and you're just like, why am I doing this? Nobody cares. But by looking at the data, you can feel more empowered to make the proper decisions. The other piece isn't just your own management of your business, but you don't want your clients looking like this either when they're looking at your web page. So it's important to have this information available to help you, again, with your goal of creating a quality site. So I want to take a few minutes now and look at a tool that I find to be really helpful which is Power BI. Now, full disclosure, I'm no, data, Power BI expert here. I'm just like you. I have a business. I got this tool as part of my Office 365 subscription, and decided, it might be a little more powerful than what I could do in Excel. But again, your SMART goals really should drive this. And your SMART goals may not lead you to a fancy Power BI dashboard. It might lead you to more of a simple Excel chart. So, you don't have to do this to track data, but I am just showing it to you because I have found it to be really useful. Again, with the idea that I'm pulling data from a variety of resources to get a full picture. And Power BI is a really great way to do that. So this is some data I pulled together recently for a project that we did. And it's to pull in data, it's a simple act of just coming here to the get data. And if you can look at this list of all the data you could easily pull into Power BI, it's really cool. SharePoint, remember my SharePoint form? That's where I'm getting a lot of this quality data I'm reporting. I'm also pulling from a SQL database from my project management linguists system. I'm also pulling data from my financial data. You can pull it from QuickBooks. You can look at things, your help desk support things, Google Analytics. So as you can see, it's really powerful if you want to really easily track. And so a little time spent making your dashboard will create a scenario where every month it's just a matter of refreshing and, maybe digging a little deeper in one area or another area. So, the sky's the limit, but that's why your SMART goals are going to help keep you focused on exactly what to track and how to track it. So once you get here, you could see I pulled in all those data sources, and they're all over here as tables in my that are available for me to do whatever I want. And so I could create different visuals. I could create a map. I don't know what I would do with the map in this case, but it'd be great to see your regions and bounce rates, and it might really fit in your organization. I can create goal charts. Like this is a chart that I could set a goal and see how close I'm coming to that goal. I love this one actually quite a bit. I do these little donut charts, as you can see down here. This is a cool way to, and as you can see, it's smart. Like I can say, I'm really interested in looking more at Arabic. And the reason I want to do that is because I realized I'm missing a, okay, don't look at that yet. Don't look at that yet. Okay, I'm going to get there just a second. One moment, please. Okay, well, obviously, I'm going to have to do this the old-fashioned way, which is recreate this graph, which is not a problem. But I can look, I had a nice little graph here comparing the languages with each other. You can see I can just pull that really quickly together. Did you see how quickly I made that with just pulling my little data over here? Once I get this, I can see, Arabic is kind of an issue because it needed more corrections in the text than some of the other languages. And so, if I choose to, I could click on this and just look at the, Arabic data. And again, it helps me get to the big picture. Like, okay, so Arabic was an issue. What are the categories of issues that came up the most for this language? What level of issues came up the most? is there an issue here? How much did I spend on Arabic? And did I get a value for that language? So it depends on your, level of curiosity. The cool thing too with Power BI is you can actually, if you take it online, I'm just going to pull this up over here. You take it online, you can actually ask questions. I might not be able to show you this right now, but it's a really cool feature where you can actually go online and say, what was my profit for Arabic? And it'll actually show you. It's like a little Google search with your data. So I just encourage you. I'm not going to show you that piece of it right now because I don't want to take the time. It's not coming up. Oh, there it is. I'll at least show you where it is on here because it is really powerful. So with Power BI, I was showing you the desktop version, but there's an online version as well, which is over here. And see, I can pull it up. It comes up on my SharePoint site, and the data is all right here for me to look at, respond to. I can share with my team. Everybody has access to it. You can see, this is like a way to understand. And then here's what I was talking about. You can ask questions about your data. So, if I can say, I don't know, what, and you can just ask them in real time and it'll show you a lot of interesting information. So that's one definite thing that Power BI can do that a Google spreadsheet can't do for you. And so that's another reason I'm really fond of this tool. So, again, I'm not going to give you a full training on Power BI, only to say I encourage you if you have it. And there are a lot of resources available to you for Power BI. And so we'll put some links in the comments below if you're interested in digging a little deeper on how to use it. I learned it in maybe a day, and I'm in it all the time, like every day. The first thing I do is I come in, get my cup of coffee, and I check my dashboard to see, what's going on with our financial health, what's going on with our quality, what's going on with our clients, and I can get the whole picture in just by refreshing it. So I can't say enough about how powerful that is. So I'm going to come back here. So, that's kind of the meat of what I wanted to talk about today. I didn't really want to take the full hour because, like I said, I want to be respectful of your time. But I was curious if any questions came up. And Ashton told me that she was going to call if there was anything in the chat. So we haven't figured out yet how to get someone remote into the presentation. That'll be for next time. But Ashton's not calling, so it makes me kind of think maybe we don't have questions right now. But again, if something comes up and we can address it, just leave it in the comments below and we'll definitely write you a response. I also wanted you to know, again, for those of you who stuck it out and stayed, I'm getting a phone call. It's Ashton. Hello, Ashton.
Hi, Stacy. I'm calling in. So it looks like there aren't any questions in the live chat right now, but I just thought that it would be, a good idea to wait a little bit to see if anything did come up. But in the time that we're waiting, I did want to ask a couple of things. First of all, my biggest question, it seems that Power BI is a particularly powerful tool, but I was wondering about how long would you say it takes before, compiling this data starts to show kind of these meaningful patterns that you can build off of?
Yeah, that's a good question, Ashton, because there is some work around this. I'm not saying, one day you're going to put together a dashboard and going to know everything.
Right.
There's a process involved, and it does take some time. Maybe it took me a month or two with my team and a few meetings to kind of come up with, okay, what are things that are interesting to us? What kind of things do I want to be able to see? Some of this, I had I had already been looking at in a number of different tools, and so Power BI allowed me to pull it together. So I kind of already knew what I wanted to track from other tools, but I was looking at 5 or 6 different sources, and I didn't have like one complete dashboard.
Right.
So there is a little bit of a time investment, but the payoff is huge. To be able to just refresh this and know what's going on saves me all the time I was going to different sources and maybe forgetting, or maybe like, oh, and again, it's about knowing what's knowable, and having that available. So I would definitely plan on investing. The more time, the better if you have it. I know time is always the issue, but again, you'll see a return on that time investment. And again, what you really want to see is the return by avoiding your clients looking like this.
Right, exactly. All right, cool. Good to know.
Cool.
Okay, I think one more question,
Cool.
and then I'll hang up unless we have any other questions that pop up. So I was just wondering, I know that you mentioned that, the categories and things that different companies track are kind of dependent on what, a individual business's SMART goals are for their product, for example. But I was just wondering, off the top of your head, would you recommend maybe just 1 or 2 categories that Power BI can kind of compile that a company could track that's kind of applicable across the board? I mean, I said, you said before that it's kind of individualized, but I was just wondering if you had maybe like 1 or 2 that you would mainly recommend.
Okay, well that's definitely, I'm glad you brought that up, because I forgot to say this when I was talking about those categories. Actually, let me go here to, oh my goodness, SharePoint is just too powerful. When we're looking at those categories, I did not make those up. Those are, those categories come from, there used to be an organization called Lisa, and they established some of these categories. Now Lisa doesn't exist anymore, but Lisa was like the localization institute of, I don't even know. But they established these categories as sort of trying to make them an industry standard. Now Lisa doesn't exist, but there's other organizations that are also working on coming up with some industry standards that can be known, that you would want to stay on top of if you really want to go deep into language quality. Some of the organizations you might want to keep an eye on, one is GALA, Globalization and Localization Association. They're based up in Seattle, and they have some groups working on some standardizations. There's also Common Sense Advisory. ATA has a few things out there. So definitely I would keep an eye on, what's going on in the industry, and
maybe we can link a couple of those in the comments.
Yeah, totally. And definitely, connect with us, whether it's social media or sign up for our mailing list, so that we can keep you informed of those kind of things as they come up, because they're really important to our users. But yeah, so I didn't make those up. I think so. It's kind of cool in the sense to track industry standards, because it gives you, again, some, like, how are we in comparison to other companies doing this, and hopefully as these organizations evolve in this, and I'm part of, full disclosure, I'm part of the GALA group, and I've been involved in some of those quality meetings there, and I'm still actively into that. And so as those evolve, it's going to be really powerful to kind of know, and help you set those SMART goals, and like in manufacturing, they have standards like a 98% quality rating or something like that. And so they have these kind of industry ratings, and then it gives you a goal to work towards. So, again, this is if you're really heavily like into a quality system, I would definitely keep in touch with that kind of stuff. If you're just really wanting some assurances that your website's being translated and you don't really care about, that whole, system out there, you can make up your own categories. There's no rules about this. It's just more
Right.
of talking about the outcome that you want to see from that.
Definitely.
Cool.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thanks for your call in.
Yeah, of course. It looks like there aren't any other questions, but, like Stacy said in the beginning, if you're watching this later, just comment on the video, or you can email hello@mindlinkresources.com, and I would be more than happy to answer any questions that you have as well. Okay, so thank you for your time, Stacy. This is a wonderful webinar, and we'll talk to you later.
Thank you, Ashton. And
all right.
we'll talk to you later. And on our next webinar, we'll find a way to have Ashton also here. She's calling from sunny Chico, California, where it's really awful and rainy here, so I don't blame her. But yeah, I appreciate the call in and the questions and kind of thinking about this subject in a new and cool way. So thank you for your time today. And as I promised at the beginning, I have an offer for those of you who stuck it out. And we'll put this all in we don't want to put all of this in the comments, right? Because you stuck it out, you get rewarded. But for those of you interested, I would love to send you one of our swag bags to help you be successful as a quality translation specialist. We have really cool Humans Say It Best bag promoting translation quality, and we have little stickers you can put on the back of your laptop and notebooks. So we want to send you a swag bag. So what I want you to do at the end of this, if you registered, I'll go ahead and send you a feedback form, which I really appreciate. You're registering, and I appreciate your feedback on this webinar. And also, if you go to webinars.mindlink.com, we'll have a little landing page where you can order your swag bag. And for those of you, maybe you're like, oh, I hate that kind of stuff. That's cool. I mean, I don't get it, but I realize, everything is different. So everyone's different. So I would also like to give you a coupon. And I'm going to give you a coupon for 20% off of one language for your translation. And this is going to be a great way if you're considering translating even just a landing page. It's a great way to get that off the ground and start seeing some data come in about that page. And so we'll help you get that going and set that up for you. You'll be on your way to being a quality translation provider. So, well, anyway, I appreciate your time today. And again, we'll do this again, probably next month. So if you have ideas for topics that you want us to cover, let us know in the comments, or again, like Ashton said, you can email us at hello@mindlinkresources.com. So shoot us an email and let us, or write in the comments what kind of topics you'd love to see us related to translation, quality, anything. I mean, if it's interesting to us, it's interesting to you, I'm happy to talk about anything. Again, I got that right brain thing going on. So I'm a talker. So let us know if there's anything you want us to cover, and we're happy to do it. But in the meantime, I really thank you again for your time today, and I look forward to seeing you on further webinars. So thank you so much. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and keep quality in mind. It's a good fight to fight. Thank you.